Joining us now is Peter Hasson, editor at Washington Free Beacon. Peter, thank you for joining us. What did you make of Joe Biden's address today?
Yeah, so Joe Biden's speech tonight can really be seen as the closing act of the Biden cover-up, because he didn't acknowledge that his health is worse than he's portrayed it to be. He didn't really give any kind of reason for why he's stepping down now. And then he said, well, he's doing it for democracy, but really, if he were doing it for democracy, he would have done this 2 years ago. So the party could have had an open primary and, the voters could have gotten their say, which obviously is the complete opposite of what happened here. And so really, it was a low bar, and I'm sure, the usual suspects on CNN are going to come out and say it was a historically excellent speech.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Which really just, is part of that same cover-up of people, of Biden and the media kind of insulting the intelligence of the average American.
Absolutely. Joe Biden also lied about the crisis at the southern border. This is what he had to say.
The violent crime rate is at a 50-year low. We're also securing our border. Border crossings are lower today than when the previous administration left office.
Okay, maybe today, that's right, there was a low number, but that's after the fact that 10 million illegal immigrants have entered the US under his administration.
Yeah, and on top of that, he also cited a stat about violent crime. But actually, a lot of that goes to kind of the FBI has changed how it reporting methods, and so they really have kind of a shortcoming on the data front. So I wouldn't put too much faith in that. But then on the border, I think it's pretty telling that he's trying to rewrite reality here. When I think in every state in the country, people can see what the border crisis is like, because the border crisis is being bussed into their neighborhoods and into their school gymnasiums. And so, the whole Biden, theme for the last 3.5 years has been telling people not to believe what they can see. Don't believe that he's unfit for office, even though you can watch him, talking to dead people. And here he's saying, take my word for it, the country is safe and the border is secure. But it's not the kind of thing that stands up to more than 2 seconds of scrutiny there.
Let's look at Kamala Harris, who's been hitting the ground running campaigning after securing enough support from Democratic delegates to become the party's nominee, although at this stage that's not guaranteed. But there is a good chance that she'll be going up against Donald Trump in November. So here are the top 5 things I've put together about what we need to know about Kamala Harris. And Peter, I'd love to get your thoughts about what I've missed in a moment, but let's look at what she did in 2021. She went on television to throw her support behind a move to defund the police.
Right now, what we're seeing in America is many cities spend over 1/3 of their entire city budget on policing. But meanwhile, we've been defunding public schools for years in America. We've got to re-examine what we're doing with American taxpayer dollars.
That grab was from 2020, but she also raised bail money for Black Lives Matter activists. Some of those that she helped release went on to commit further crimes, including murder. Now, what is Kamala Harris like to work for? Well, 92% of her staff left in the first 3 years as vice president. So what does that tell you about her ability to lead? Also in 2020, her campaign was such a mess that she dropped out before voting day. But of course, this time around, she's close to becoming the Democrat nominee without earning a single vote from the public. And of course, she was part of the cover-up where she repeatedly told the American people that there is nothing to worry about when it comes to Joe Biden's mental fitness.
And in Joe Biden, we have a president who is probably one of the boldest and strongest American presidents we have had in his response to the needs of the American people.
But he is an extraordinary leader, and I wish that people could see
what I see, because there's only one person who sits behind that resolute desk. So the way that the president's demeanor in that report was characterized could not be more wrong on the facts and clearly politically motivated. Thank God our president is in good shape, in good health, and is ready to lead in our second term.
Peter, what did I miss? What concerns you about Kamala Harris?
Well, one thing that she is going to face a lot more scrutiny on is really her own political record, because during the Biden era, she's really kind of been able to draft behind him. And the fact that she supports far left policies has kind of been moderated by the fact that as the VP, she isn't making policy. But now all of that's about to, get right back into the spotlight. And the last time her shortcomings were, facing as much scrutiny as they're going to be, she dropped out before Iowa. Was pulling below Andrew Yang. And so she really does not have a good track record anytime she has to stand on her own 2 feet. And so she really has gotten pushed into embracing a lot of these slogans from the activist base, whether it's the Green New Deal or abolishing ICE or decriminalizing border crossings. A lot of this stuff is really going to come to the forefront. She's going to have to defend it to a general population after not being able to do a good job of defending it to her own voters in 2019 and 2020. And so she really is going to be, she's kind of in the honeymoon phase right now, but she's going to come under the microscope, and she's going to have some answers for why she believes these things, or she's going to have to, blatantly flip-flop and say she doesn't want to abolish ICE or, implement the Green New Deal. And a lot of this really goes to kind of, one of her core weaknesses is people don't trust her. And I think, it's not hard to see why when the voters can see Biden, clearly in a mentally infirm state, and she comes out and tells them that actually Joe Biden behind closed doors is doing cartwheels and solving Rubik's cubes with one hand, and so it really kind of goes to the core issue of, can you trust Kamala Harris? And Kamala Harris says Joe Biden's fine. 80% of Americans say he's not. And so these are really the issues that she's going to have to explain.
Well,
even as sympathetic as the media coverage has been, she's still going to have a tough time.
Let's have a look at the media coverage of Kamala Harris. Here it is.
I was blown away. I was like, I kind of fell in love with her. I just thought it was a great, great opening act.
That is fighting Kamala Harris. She is coming out guns blazing.
I'm jumping out of my seat over here watching this. I think people have been thirsting for this.
She looked completely comfortable tonight with the words she was speaking. They felt organic and genuine. I think every Democrat should be heartened by that speech. I think that if I'm the Trump campaign, I think the message is very clear. The game is on here, and it's not going to be easy.
It's no wonder people aren't watching CNN anymore. But let's finally look at the polling. Kamala Harris holds a slim lead over Republican presidential challenger Donald Trump following President Joe Biden's decision to abandon his re-election bid. So the Reuters Ipsos survey found that Kamala Harris is leading Donald Trump by 2%. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I wouldn't put too much stock in that at the moment because, she really has been kind of drafting behind Biden. And so I think, there was always going to be this initial bump when people realized that, unlike Joe Biden, she can put two sentences together. But really, when push comes to shove and people start looking into kind of what she believes, what she says, and the policies she would implement, the people she would put into power, I think we're going to see those numbers come much farther down.
Okay.
Especially because it's not like she's at like a 52 48. You know, it's a low enough number that she really doesn't have even half the country committed to backing her. So I think she's in a very vulnerable state that is going to really be tested as the campaign kicks into gear.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Peter Hasson, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thank you so much for having me.